Well, well, well. Looks like that first video got pretty popular, eh? You sick freaks. Is that what you're looking for? Disturbing scenes from horror movies? What would your mother think? Lucky for you, I am also a horror movie loving degenerate. So let's get down to brass tacks. The top 5 most disturbing scenes in horror movies, part 2. Coming in at number 5, we've got the upside down hacksaw surprise from Terrifier. Man, when is Terrifier 2 coming out again? I just want to see if they can top this. Going back to All Hallows Eve, there are some pretty gnarly moments, but none are done up like this bit. You see it all here, full view. Nothing is left to the imagination, save for what might happen in the future. Sometimes the more effective scare comes from leaving the viewers in suspense, unable to guarantee what just happened. That is not the case for this scene. Good lord, Art, did you have to do it like that? Terrifier is a largely disturbing movie throughout its entire runtime. It mostly feels like a special effects artist making a movie to showcase his wares. The grosser, greasier, and gorier the better. Plus, Art the Clown makes a bid for a new slasher icon. If you want to make an impression, you can't just copy what the greats have already done, you've got to cover new ground. So, we get a plethora of painful moments at the hands of the black and white clown. Feces smeared on bathroom walls, bits and pieces sliced off poor unsuspecting victims, and of course the upside down hacksaw surprise. Nobody wants to watch their friends die right in front of their eyes. It's a horrible thing to behold no matter what the circumstance. But the way this kill goes down is in a league of its own. After stabbing, drugging, and tying up Tara, Art begins a presentation in the style of a cheap stage magician. He reveals his lovely helper, Tara's friend Dawn, who is dangling spread eagle by her ankles. After some grandstanding and an extravagant flourish, he produces a hacksaw. He walks up to his nude, helpless victim and starts hacking away, right between the thighs and all the way down to her head. Blood sprays out, Dawn screams, and Tara can do nothing but helplessly watch on as her friend is bisected by this killer clown. It is just so painful to watch. I don't know what's worse, the fact that Tara has to watch as her friend is cleaved in two, the fact that the sawing starts at a place that nobody wants a sharp object, or the hideous smile Art puts on for the entirety of the ordeal. It's all bad. Coming in at number 4, we've got the ceremonial cliff jumping from Midsommar. You can usually judge a movie's effectiveness by audience reactions when something crazy happens. A lot of the time, while seeing horror movies in theaters, you'll get some gasps or laughs, or maybe even someone whispering, "Don't go in there." But that means that they're doing what they're meant to do, elicit reactions. But what if the audience is totally silent? Well, that just about sums up my experience with seeing this scene on opening weekend. The room went dead silent, which matched up pretty well with the audio as it happened. Even the kids who snuck in and were giggling at uncomfortable moments shut up for a second, which is pretty wild. That is how effective and disturbing this scene is. Midsommar is a beautiful, brutal movie. It's not for everyone, and scenes like this are part of the reason why. There are plenty of disturbing moments for sure, from the coerced breeding subplot to the blood eagle to that final scene with the bear suit, but the cliff jumping really stands out as eye-popping and heart-stopping. It's the first big oh sh** moment in the movie, and nobody can really do anything about it. Danny and her pals have been trying to acclimate to the odd culture and rituals of those living in the commune, but so much of what the people do seems backwards to them. This ceremony, in which 2 of the eldest members of the commune decide to end their own lives, is too much for some. After a day of ritualistic meals, everyone treks to a rocky cliff. The 2 elders, now aged 72, are carried to the top and look out over their community. One by one, without any real warning, they hurl themselves over the edge, crashing to the ground below. To the visitors, who had no idea this was happening today, this comes as a major shock. One of the cliff jumpers' head explodes like a melon, instantly killing them. The second jumper, however, hits the ground feet first. This shatters his legs, but doesn't kill him immediately. His groans of agony can be heard as a commune member carrying an enormous mallet strides over to put the poor man out of his misery. As this horrifying display of death is happening, all of the members of the commune begin to mimic the pain the 2 must have felt as they died. Wails and cries ring out, breaking the eerie silence and adding layers of discomfort to the whole situation. This mixture of culture shock, unexpected death, and brutal bodily mutilation makes this scene extremely disturbing and difficult to stomach, especially if you didn't expect it coming in. In a way, the unexpected nature of it really puts the audience in the shoes of the group of visitors. It's almost as if you were there yourself. Coming in at number 3, cannibal consumption from Hostel Part 2. The entire Hostel series is predicated on being as disturbing and raunchy as possible. Eli Roth is a man with extreme tastes, and he wants everyone to know it. So after the rip-roaring success of his first torture porn venture, of course some sequels were gonna get made. And what can a horror sequel do other than try and top the kills from its predecessors? Of course, the premise of young folks being kidnapped and sold at a facility full of people willing to pay to kill doesn't change much, but the brutality is elevated and the kills are more gnarly than ever. Maybe a little more self-referential too. In the scene we're talking about today though, they make sure to make use of a very upsetting taboo: cannibalism. Poor Miroslav, tied to a table, forced to watch the director of Cannibal Holocaust eat his leg meat. Yep, you heard me right. Roth brought in Ruggero Deodato to play the part of this Italian cannibal, and the poor dude on the table is kept alive and conscious for the entire process. So as choice cuts of meat are sliced away from his legs, he's gotta endure the pain of the process and the knowledge that his body is being consumed by another person. There are a lot of layers to the disturbing imagery in this scene, to say the least. Coming in at number 2, the eyeball splinter from Zombie. Speaking of upsetting images from Italian directors, we're gonna talk about some iconic ocular trauma. There's something about eyeballs that makes people squirm at the thought of them taking damage. Ever since that classic eye jelly scene in Un Chien Andalou, folks have leaned on eyeball destruction to disturb and fascinate their audiences. So when an enormous splinter slowly slides its way into someone's pupil, scrambles it, and then breaks off, you're gonna feel some discomfort. And that's exactly what happens in Lucio Fulci's Zombie. Or is it Zombie 2? We'll ignore that for now. Late one night, an undead intruder breaks into poor Paola's house. She shuts the door on it, but that's not nearly enough. The zombie breaks through the wooden door with its arm, exposing a very gnarly, very sharp splinter, then pulls her through the door, eventually bringing the splinter into contact with her eyeball. We see it all here. The splinter slowly comes towards her face and eventually impacts the pupil as if it were a bullseye. The jelly-like structure of the eye is sloshed around as it sinks deeper in, and eventually the splinter breaks off, tearing a good deal of goop inside of her eye socket to pieces. Ocular trauma. Seriously. And finally at number 1, scalping and more from Bone Tomahawk. When you call your movie Bone Tomahawk, you best live up to that title. Thankfully, that's exactly what S. Craig Zahler did. Everything you would expect from a movie called Bone Tomahawk is here and more. The Wild West was a dirty, lawless, violent place. A lot of westerns tend to skip all of the gangrene and skin flaying that went on in favor of heroic stories of gunslingers and sarsaparilla. Not this one. Here we get folks addicted to opium and cannibalistic tribes kidnapping people to be used in their next meal. And with that comes a whole lot of human suffering. The most disturbing scene in Bone Tomahawk involves the use of that titular weapon to scalp a man alive. That's pretty rough on its own, but there's more. The man's scalp is then stuffed into his own mouth, and some teeth are broken to ensure that it all fits. Dental trauma is like ocular trauma and causes squeamishness like nothing else. Then, after the scalping and stuffing, the poor man is chopped in half with a blunt axe. I mean, it would be one thing if the axe was sharp, but holy smokes. Once the choppers get about halfway, they decide that's good enough and rip him in twain. We love the wet ripping sound of flesh being pulled apart. Yeah, this one tops the list for a reason. Well then, nightmare fuel for the coming days. There are scenes out there so disturbing that they affect people's ability to function normally from then on. We'll see if any of these manage to do that, eh? So, what'd you think of the list? Did any of these cause great mental damage? Did I miss any good ones? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more depraved ones from the top 5 horror movie monsters nobody talks about, part 3. Not a Merry Man says, I think my favorite movie monster that nobody talks about are the critters from Attack the Block. They might not be the most unique or scary, but they just look cool to me. And I've got to agree, those glowing mouths, legendary. Tony O'Robb says, I was really excited when rumors of a The Host 2 movie were circulating, and that sequel never happened. SMH. I mean, sequels to really good horror movies are tricky business, so maybe it's for the best that we only have one movie. Kelly Ganson says, what about Chud? I'd say Chud's actually pretty famous at this point, or maybe infamous actually. Paul St. Leger says, Keegan, have you ever written or directed any horror short films or features? I'd love to see if you have. I've actually got a couple under my belt from school, but you're gonna have to do some searching. Lucas Atheist says, am I the only one who thinks Hell House is a weak, boring, and poorly done series? Yes. You're all alone, and you will be forever. Should have appreciated Hell House more. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to visit a mysterious escape room with a bunch of strangers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Roth brought in Ruggero Deodato to play Ruggero Deodato. We love the wet rip. Nope. Why can't I say this line the way I want to say it?